Well, just before we go to Kenya, let's get a quick update on today's trading at the Nigerian equities market. One of the stockbrokers, Rotimi Fakejo, joins us now. Good afternoon, Rotimi. Thank you for coming through to us. Well, the week seemed to have started on a good note. At intraday, we saw the index up, though slightly. What has changed now?
Well, the index is not really starting the week well. It's actually down now 0.38%, as courtesy of some major quoted companies in the likes of Zenith, in the likes of MTN, and they are basically the one, and Unilever. They are basically the ones that are dragging down the market. And in terms of volume, we've done about 168 million for a value of 2.2 billion naira. And that is not actually very impressive for a Monday morning.
So how is the market reacting to the suspension of Owando's AGM?
Well, I think for now, the price is slightly down by 3.85%. That is, it has dropped 15 kobo and it's trading at 3.85 kobo. I believe that there is a whole lot of confusion as to what actually will happen tomorrow. SEC has put a hold on the AGM, and we know that Owando also is in court, maybe try to restrain SEC from enforcing what had already the verdict that had already been given by SEC. And we do not know exactly how it's going to play out. Or we believe that SEC had spoken, and they are the regulator in the market, and believe that by about this time tomorrow, we definitely will have known the outcome.
Okay, the week has just started. What is the outlook? What are your stock picks for the week?
Well, I think for now, stock picks, because we've had many disappointing moments whereby we believe that stock has bottomed out, and it may be time for it to start rising, but we see the bottoming out continually happening day after day. But be that as it may, I believe if anyone is going to buy anything, it should be for long-term purpose, not buy it today and sell next month. And I believe if someone has that perspective in mind, then the major banking sector stocks, like basically GT Bank any day, Zenith Bank, UBA, I believe those ones definitely you can't fail with it. And looking at the industrial goods sector, I believe that for what we've seen of the auditor report for Dangote Cement and the prospects in that particular company, I believe is actually a good one for anyone to look at, not in the short term, maybe medium term and long term.
Thank you for your time, Rotimi. And Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta last week gave the Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge a second and final four-year term in office, opting for continuity in the face of a private sector credit crunch and pressure to reduce government borrowing. Although Yale-educated economist who advised the International Monetary Fund in Washington before taking up his post in June 2015, has been credited with stabilizing the shilling and giving credibility to the government's management of financial affairs. Well, let's see how this is being welcomed by stakeholders in the financial sector there. I'm being joined by the country representative for Kenya, Augusto & Co., Mr. George Bodo. Well, George Bodo is also the former head of banking research at Equibank Capital. Good afternoon, Mr. Bodo. Thank you for coming through to us.
Good afternoon.
So how did the banking sector welcome that renewal of Mr. Njoroge's term of office?
Well, the reception of the news was a bit mixed, even if you move away from the banking system. I think broadly, the governor has, the opinion is still divided rather on his performance in his first term. He definitely rubbed shoulders wrong with the way he seized the two banks in 2015 and 2016, and there's a group of people who are not happy with that. And the second issue is that the members of parliament, essentially the politicians, have never been happy with some of the controls he introduced, especially on the withdrawal on deposit of funds. I mean, remember that he put in a cap. He sent a regulation to banks that if anybody's withdrawing cash above equivalent of $10,000, you've got to fill in additional papers. For instance, the source of money, where is it headed to in the case of withdrawals, and deposits respectively. And politicians have never been happy. But on the other hand, you've got a group of people who, especially policy think tanks and the academia and even the commercial, some of the bankers, who have been happy with the way he's dealt with the issue of bad banks in the system. And so a number of people consider him to be a strict disciplinarian for that matter.
Okay, now going forward, how do you think he's going to handle the ongoing challenge of perhaps formulating monetary policy? I mean, you talked about the government-imposed cap on commercial lending rates, taking its toll on credit growth, and of course calls of growth for the government to reduce its budget deficit.
I think the issue of monetary policy for me is a bit dicey. We have a number of factors at play. The first is the interest rate caps, which continue to be in place, and there's no sign that they're going to go away. And that has disabled the credit channel the credit transmission channel, which is one of the targets of monetary policy, targeting the credit channel, and that has been disabled. But beyond that, my assessment is that monetary policy going forward has been held hostage by a very aggressive fiscal policy by the government. The deficit spending in Kenya is at all-time high, and that means that all monetary policy considerations, and we've seen the last couple of, let's say, 5 meetings, all monetary policy considerations have had to factor in an aggressive fiscal policy. So I think, in my view, in a fiscal dominance period like where Kenya is right now, I think the monetary policy decisions going forward will have to factor in the government's borrowing cost. In essence, what I'm saying is that I don't see any tightening stance. Neither do I see. I see a continuation of a neutral stance, essentially where we are.
Of course, the committee will be meeting sometime next month to take that decision. Well, something happened last week. In order to urgently stamp out what they call an upsurge of suspicious transactions in its financial sector, Mr. Njoroge announced, that was last week, of the plan to invalidate the older version of its 1,000 shillings note. How would that help to curb illicit flows?
Well, it was not necessarily to stamp out illicit financial flows. Well, it's primarily a fulfillment of a constitutional requirement. The current constitution specifically stipulated that any currency in circulation, be it coin or note, should not bear the portrait of a human being. So our currencies, the currency circulation in Kenya, both notes and coins, have always bore the portrait of the president, the founding president and the second president, and even the third president. So they've always bore the portrait of the president. So this was a fulfillment of a deadline, a constitutional deadline actually, that all currencies should not bear the portrait of a human being, but portraits of natural phenomena in Kenya, like mountains, buildings. But to get back to your question, the issue of illicit financial flows and the introduction of the demonetization of currency, specifically with the 1,000 shilling currency notes, I don't think they will achieve the objective of stamping out illicit financial flows. And I say that for 3 reasons, actually. First reason is that the timeline is quite long. There are about 4 months. I think we have about until October 1st for everyone to adapt the new currency note, and specifically this is the 1,000 shilling currency note. And the second issue is that typically asset allocation among that class of people being targeted is heavy towards physical immovable properties. I don't think there's anyone holding $100 million equivalent in their houses.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Judge Boda. I'm sure we have quite a lot to talk from there. And of course, let's look forward to that meeting of the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee, which will come up next month. Thank you for your time. Well, it's in that note that we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimezi Obi.